All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. It's 1 o'clock. I'm gonna get started on time because I know I'm standing between you and dessert. So I'm very cognizant of that. So thank you for being here. I think we have about 45 minutes. I'm gonna share with you for probably about 20 or 25, so there'll be plenty of time for questions and conversations. I'm Laura Bettencourt, and I'm here to talk with you about the work we've been doing over the fall regarding micro-credentials. And I'm glad you're here because today, oh no, um, today at the end of my presentation, you are going to get exclusive access to content before it goes out to the rest of the system. So thank you. It's a little gift for you. So today what we're going to do is just talk about what are micro-credentials, how are we approaching micro-credentials here at Lone Star College, what we've done so far, and ways that you can get involved in the work. So our pilot project is about halfway through, and we need you for the second half of the pilot with the goal of rolling out our first batch of micro-credentials for students in the fall. So there's a lot of fun opportunities for you to be engaged in the work if you feel so led. So in the fall, we started with something called the Executive Committee, and this was a group of folks from throughout the system that could help us figure out what can we do in micro-credentials that keeps us within all the boundaries, if you will, of SACS, the coordinating board, all the different compliance pieces, and also still honors the innovative spirit that micro-credentials brings that we wanted to tap into. So micro-credential is basically a competency or skill-based recognition. It's a badge, right? The micro-credential is usually represented by the badge, and they are everywhere. Everybody's doing it. If anything, Lone Star is kind of a little behind, but what we found was that served us well, because what we found when we started digging into this was that a lot of people had gone overboard. They badged everything. There are colleges out there that make you have a badge for every single SLO. So by the time these students graduate college, they've got 150, 200 badges, and all that does is water it down. And so we learned from that. We don't want to do that. Lone Star has a tremendous reputation, and we wanted to make sure we honored that with whatever we decided to do with micro-credentials. So up here, you'll see a few examples. A lot of great things happening out there around the work. So as I mentioned earlier, the first thing we did in the fall was really just set back and take some time to figure out how do we want to do this the right way. Our executive committee was formed. We had our first meeting right after Labor Day. And one of the first things they did was figure out who did they want to be, right? What's the role of this group? And so this is the vision and mission statement that they developed for themselves to really kind of provide those bumper rails, as Dr. Haggerty likes to talk about, but also help us design a quality approach to what we're going to create. So at the end of our work, what we decided was that we wanted verified micro-credentials, meaning it's verified, it's gone through some kind of process to say, yes, this is something we're going to put our Lone Star stamp on, that are focused on high need skills, which I wish Dr. Link was able to stick around because I have about 80% of the answers she's looking for. They need to be asynchronous, self-paced. A student can, or a learner can hop in as time allows. They're able to be done on their own. 30 hours or less. Once you get over 30 hours, now we're talking about a course, right? There's not really anything micro about that. Non-credit bearing, and we'll talk about that more in a minute, with an opportunity to provide a pathway to credit in the future. We're not there yet, but we're already thinking ahead. Must be developed with a subject matter expert. We need somebody who truly knows this area to help us build it, and vet it through a quality assurance program. So we said, this is what we want. Now, how do we get there? So before I jump to that, I want to really talk about what do we mean by non-credit. Dr. Haggerty mentioned this morning that these are going to be CE. So let's talk about what that means. What that means is that it's going to be open to all students, credit, CE, dual credit, every single student. If you're a Lone Star student, you can participate in these micro-credentials for free. They cannot be a mandatory part of a credit course. They cannot be substituted for one of your assignments. They can't be part of your curriculum. That's where it gets a little gray. So they have to stand outside. So as faculty, you have the ability to say, listen, this is a really good opportunity. I highly recommend. Or I'll give bonus points to students that complete X, Y, or Z. think of it almost like a supplemental instruction. It's going to help teach skills, but it's happening outside that classroom setting. So that's what's meant by it being non-credit or on the CE side. As we mature it in our long-term plan, we are already looking at how do we take maybe a handful of certain micro-credentials and PLA them into course credit. So that's in the back of our mind, but we're not there yet. So hopefully that makes sense. And so you'll see a lot of verbiage that will, again, reinforce that idea. This is non-credit. This cannot be mandated at any credit courses. However, just know that doesn't mean it's off limits to our credit students, because it's made for all of our students. So the next thing we spend a lot of time on is our quality assurance process. And it's going to look very similar to our curriculum review process, because at the end, we're still talking about curriculum. It's just a different sort. So what we have is we're a process where an author, it's probably going to be a faculty member, but maybe not, develops a proposal, says, I want to develop a micro-credential based on this. And they will submit that. And then it will go through a review process. If the proposal is approved, then we'll enter into an MOAA with that faculty member to have that micro-credential developed. It will then be handed over to our friends in online services, where that faculty member would work with an instructional designer to build it. And then once it gets the green light from the design team, then it's able to be offered to students. Okay, so that's our process we developed. When we look at what goes into the proposal, the required elements are going to be things like, does this micro-credential address a high need skill? I mean, a micro-credential on underwater basket weaving might be interesting, but is that helping our student? Not necessarily. So right out of the park, we need to know it addresses a high need skill, and it's going to be 30 hours or less time on the student to complete it, because we don't want it to get too big. Then we're going to start asking you questions like, what's the title? What is your competency statement? So in our credit courses, we kind of have that course description. Micro-credentials are much more direct and specific. It's competency statement and skills that then go with that. And so those are, and we have examples and descriptions and all that along the way. We're going to ask you about your taxonomy. There are a lot of micro-credentials out there that are basically just participation. You showed up, you get a badge. We are not doing that. We are going to automatically go a step above. It's going to have to be something of a higher caliber. And so you'll see that when you get in and play with everything. And then we are at the proposal stage, going to ask you for a rough course map. How are you planning to teach this? How are you planning to assess this? And that lets us know that you've really thought it through. And then once all this is addressed and the proposal is approved, then that gives you something to really start working with that instructional designer on. And before I forget to say it, we had a tremendous resource available to us on the executive committee, Neil Gregerson. He's a senior instructional designer with us. He has a wealth of experience in developing micro-credentials. So he really served as our subject matter expert for that exec committee to say, no, maybe not there. Yes, this looks good, and really helped us kind of shape our vision. So he's fantastic. And if you get into this, you'll probably get to work with him. One of the things we also decided was with assessment, we need to have that rigor, right? You can't just go in and
This is the wrong one.
and then get your badge.
It's supposed to be.
Committee recommend that whatever that big assessment was, that student needs to be able to get 85% or higher in order to get that badge. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that they need to be really hard, because rigor always needs to be coupled with what? Support, right? So it also has to be a well-designed course to then allow them to learn that material and reach that mark. So again, a couple of times now I've mentioned that we're going to need somebody to review these proposals. So one of the things the executive committee did was we said, you know what, we need somebody other than us. Executive committee, big picture, bumper rails, what are we trying to do? We need a group that says we're on the right track. And so one of the things we'll be doing this spring is kicking off our review committee. Our review committee will basically be the group that gets the proposals, evaluates them based on the rubric the executive team has already developed, gives feedback, and decides when a proposal is approved and when it needs to go back for more work. So this is kind of the charge, if you will, of that review committee. So the executive, we built it. Now we need the review team to come in and help us find the cracks, make it even better, and really help us bring it to life, if you will. So this is what we have proposed for that review committee structure. You'll see non-voting. Those are people that are on the executive committee who basically want to come to the meetings just to see if it's all working. Did what we build really work? So they will be there as resources, but we're really looking for involvement from the campuses. I met with the VPIs this morning to talk about how to send out this information and then get back the names for each campus rep. And so you'll be getting information from your VPI tomorrow that'll have a little summary of what we're talking about today and then also how they want to solicit names. And then I'll be reaching out to these other areas as well to get representation. So more on that. So our to-do list for spring is to get these committees up and running. But one of the biggest things we're doing that you'll have first access to is we thought the best way to teach you about micro-credentials was to make a micro-credential. So we this fall actually developed a micro-credentials on micro-credentials at Lone Star College. And so it is now live, it's in D2L, and it takes about 2 hours to complete based on our beta testers that were kind enough to take it for us. So this spring, what we're doing is we're launching that to any employee at Lone Star College that wants to take it just to learn more about what we're doing. But we're also going to ask that if you want to serve on the review committee, that you take it, so you are a little more up to speed on what we're doing. And then we're going to be developing the proposals for our pilot offerings. So this fall, the executive committee already decided what we want our first batch to be. So we will be working to develop those proposals for the first round of micro-credentials and then run them through that review committee to see if our process is working the way we want it to. And then some of the faculty that are involved in the work will help us build those to go out in the fall. So come fall, we will be launching our very first round of micro-credentials. They'll be available to all Lone Star students for free. And then come fall, we will also be doing a call for proposals on what other micro-credentials should we be offering as an institution. And any faculty or staff member would be able to submit a proposal once they've completed the micro-credential on micro-credentialing. So we want to make that something that people understand. So if you want to get involved, the first thing that we would ask is that you check out our little micro-credential course. Again, it takes about 2 hours to complete. And then the next thing you'll do is reach out to your VPI in whatever format they tell you to let them know you're interested in serving. And again, you'll get that information tomorrow. We're asking that you try to do that by February 5th. I know the next couple of weeks are busy. I wasn't even about to put January in there. So first part of February, if you've had a chance to take the course, you say, yeah, I think I want to be a part of this, let your VPI know. The goal is to have our first review committee meeting towards the end of February so we can start getting up to speed on things. I'm thinking we'll just meet once a month, WebEx, hour and a half should we ever need to. It should not be a big time commitment. Let's see. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be developing the proposals. This is not the review committee. This will also be developing the proposals for the various things we want to roll out in the fall, and the review committee will be giving us feedback on them. So as an exec team, when we thought about what are the very first micro-credentials that we should be offering our students, it was very similar to what Dr. Link shared earlier about those skills gaps. I was like, look at her validating my research for me to thank her. And the first one that we knew we had to develop was around AI, right? So we are working with the AI task force to develop a micro-credential that'll be available to students in the fall and tentatively titled AI Skills for College and Career Success. Okay, and so we'll be working with the AI task force to fill out all those proposal elements and then run it through the review committee. When the review committee's happy with it, then we'll have some people from the AI task force work with Neil to develop the actual micro-credential. Okay, so AI, we knew that one needed to be there. When it came time to think about the others we wanted to do, we were looking at feedback, right? What do students need as they leave us and head off to that next destination, whether it's employment or transfer. I actually personally read all the advisory committee minutes for the last year to look for themes, and it was fascinating. There were a lot of technical things in there, but a lot of broad-based themes. And it was communication, it was teamwork, it was professional behavior, knowing how to talk to your boss, knowing how to do well in an interview. And those are not new to any of us, right? And it was funny because when I sat down and kind of brought it all together and pulled out the themes, I went, this is our core curriculum. This is our Gen Ed core right here, the very things we've been trying to work on. So what I offer you is someone else helping you do the work. So we will be rolling out in fall micro-credentials that provide foundational competencies related to professionalism, communication, teamwork, and critical thinking. These are things that you would be able to recommend to your students to go take. They'll be building skill sets, again, outside of what you're doing in the class that's already kind of hitting some of these. And if a student takes all 4 of these, again, they're all free, but if they take all 4 of these, they will get a 5th badge called a micro certificate that we've titled the Competitive Edge. And so come fall, when we roll these out to students, we're also going to ask for your help in rolling this information out to our employers to say, here's what we're doing. Start looking for these badges on their resumes and let us know, is this helping bridge what you are noticing? Are you seeing a difference? And we're thinking this is another way we can start to set our students apart from the others in the applicant pool. Obviously, things of this nature, I can't necessarily teach you everything you need to know about critical thinking in 30 hours, right? So we're, again, already thinking these are foundational, and we'll come back in another year and maybe do the next level, and we'll do intermediate or advanced. There's room for these to then be stackable, if you will, but it definitely gives us a place to start, and they're being built directly related to the employer feedback, both Lone Star Advisory Committee members, Gulf Coast region, across the state of Texas. So it's all tied to high need skills. So in order to build those, I need your help. So in addition to the review committee, I'm also going to be kicking off something called the Competitive Edge Steering Committee. I need subject matter experts who have experience in teaching and assessing those type of skills to help me build out what those micro-credential courses look like. So I'm forming a committee that will not just be exclusively faculty. It's also going to involve our career services staff who've been doing this stuff kind of front lines for a long time. And we will get together and we will say, okay, here are the specific skills that we want to make sure are in the communication one, and actually have that because it's already from the employer feedback. But how do we teach that, right? And how do we assess it in a way where we can truly say this student has a fundamental understanding of these topics. So that committee will also be kicking off in February. Just like the other one, we are going to ask that you take our little micro-credential first, so you have a better understanding of the feel for what a micro-credential course looks like and what we're trying to do. And then reach out again to your VPI and let them know you want to be a part of it. I'll also be working with the VPSSs to involve those career services staff. Again, we plan to have some dean representation as well as the library council as well. Similarly, I'm thinking once a month. This one will obviously break into subgroups. So we'll have people that are on the committee that split off and work on just the professionalism badge or just the communication badge. And so there's opportunities there to really dig in. If there's one of these that sounds more interesting to you, there's opportunities to really dig in and hone in on that one. Okay. So what that means is come fall, we will have 5 different micro-credentials for a total of 6 badges that students would be able to earn for free, completely on their own, outside of class. They will actually get a digital badge and a digital wallet. If you've ever, when you did your Quality Matters and you get your little thing from Credly, we're using Credible because they already have an existing partnership with Lone Star. So students will actually have the badges that will then go to their digital wallet. They'll be able to put them on their resume. And we're just super excited about what this will do for our students. Come fall, as I mentioned earlier, we'll also be opening up that next round of, okay, we've got these up and running. What should we do next? And that will be something that anybody can kind of chime in on. And then the hard work of the review committee will be when we get way more than we can handle, how do we then prioritize? So that'll be something that we get to kind of work through, but that'll be a good problem to have. So next steps, I went really fast on that. Next steps. So if you use this QR code, it will take you straight to the SharePoint site that I have built out. which will have all the information and as well as how to get enrolled in the Understanding Microcredential course. If you've ever done it before, it's super easy. You just go to D2L and you go to Discover and you type in Understanding Microcredentialing. You'll see it pop up. You self-enroll. Thanks to Anna for her help and helping us be self-enrolled, and check it out. So take the microcredential. The SharePoint site will also have more information about the two committees that we're forming. A version, kind of a summary of all this will come out from your VPI tomorrow, that you can then follow up on. And then obviously you've got my email. Any questions, anything, you feel free to reach out. Okay. So I said a lot and I said it fast. So now I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you. Hi, Laura. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
So I have two questions for you. One, my first question is, what is the, oh, there it is. What is the value proposition for Lone Star College? What does the institution get out of this?
Absolutely. So I think the institution, it will help better achieve the mission, which is to help our students be better off in their lives than they were when they came to us. So all the research out there says that more and more employers are doing hiring based on skills, not necessarily degrees. And so this is going to help our students be able to stand out in a different way and get the jobs that they're trying to get and that we've been preparing them for. And so it's going to help us achieve our mission. It's also, I think, going to help us when employers start to see what we're doing. We're going to have more employers that want to engage with us. So when we look long term, we're starting with this. We're starting with our students, but there's conversation of what if we start to develop things for employers, right? For instance, what if this competitive edge is such a big hit that one of our employers comes to us and says, you know what, can we send all of our applicants through you? And maybe we do pre-screening and they have to complete our micro-credentials before they're considered qualified to work there, right? So there's a lot of opportunities for us to further engage with our community partners and our employers, all for the benefit of our students.
Thanks. And one other question then is, how does a prospective employer check the digital wallet, check to see that micro-credential that the student is claiming is actually verifiable?
Right. So on the digital wallet stuff, and this is not my background, right? So there's, we're calling them verified micro-credentials because anybody can go make a badge, right? So they're verified because if I send it to you digitally, when I click on it, then it brings up like this little description, if you will, that can tell when they took it, how long they spent in the course, and give a description of the skill sets that were associated with it. So a student would be able to either provide that, digitally or send links. At the end of the day, somebody can fake anything, but they will come with some verifiable content that says, I did this and here's what this means.
Okay. And one more real quick question. So in a course, and one of the micro-credentials was AI skills. If an instructor included those skills as part of their required curriculum within that course, now it was developed without the AI part, the micro-credential in mind, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the student, in completing that module for that course, also completes the requirements for the micro-credential. Is that something that can be done?
No, you can't.
Nope.
You can't double up. So if, let's say that you get in there and you heard about this awesome module in that micro-credential and you decide to steal it and put it in your course, I don't think anybody's going to care about that. But you can't then say, well, they did this, can we also give them credit? That's where it gets gray. So it would still have to be two separate learning opportunities. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Great questions.
Hi, I have a couple of questions as well. First question, you mentioned this would be available to dual credit students. Would that include students that are taking our dual credit at high schools that aren't stepping onto our campus?
Yeah, so our plan is to offer it to anybody who is considered a Lone Star College student.
In any
Just
way? Okay.
Right there. Because
Wonderful.
otherwise, y'all know how it is when you try to tease out who's what. And why not? Why not get these skills into their hands as soon as possible? So that's the goal.
And then you may have mentioned this, but is the delivery, the modality, is it going to be online for these
Yes.
5 coming asynchronous online?
It
for all
is.
of them?
And for
Okay.
our pilot, so in the fall, everything will be in D2L. Right now, we're trying to figure out as it grows, do we need to have something separate, basically a separate instance of D2L, because there is a goal to also have things that are available to the community. And so we would need something where a community person could come in and say, I want to take this and register for it and all that, but baby steps, right? So for now, everything will be in D2L. The students will have access probably to also, once they know about it, go in and self-enroll. And then when they complete it, that'll trigger their digital badge. So it'll live in D2L definitely for the coming year.
Can I go next? So are we planning to incentivize the faculty and staff for creating a micro-credential?
So there is, yeah. So if you remember back on that big smushed up chart of our process, we talked about if a proposal is approved, then the faculty member would enter into an MOAA. So there would be a stipend associated with the lift that is creating something like this. And there will also be an ongoing stipend for assessment. You know, just think about AI. Like the minute we put it out there, it's going to be outdated, right? So we know that these, in order for these to stay relevant, we're going to need those subject matter experts to come back and tweak it and make sure it's working. And so that'll be the work of the executive committee this semester to figure out what that looks like. But there's a stipend to develop, and then some type of stipend for the kind of the maintenance and assessment and upkeep of it. That we'll be working on. So all the stuff happening this spring will be done by committee, right? So there's no stipend to be on any of my committees, I'm sorry, but they'll be fun. And so everything that's happening this spring will be committee work so that we can figure out all that before we get to fall and open it up to faculty and staff and be transparent about what the expectations.
Awesome. And one other question is that right now in D2L, if you create D2L badges, they can be linked onto LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Have we thought about that route where employers, prospect employers can see the student resume with those badges on?
Yes. Yeah. So the Accredible does the same thing. And the Accredible, so if you have a Credly wallet already, you can actually like merge your wallets. And what we found was that we love D2L, it's wonderful, but having a digital badge service outside of D2L gave us a little more freedom. And the badges that were up here, our graphics, those are actually designed by our marketing department at Lone Star. So those are what our badges will look like. We are also, so when you take the micro-credentialing course, you'll get a little badge. It doesn't go to a digital wallet because I'm trying to save money for our students. I'm sure you can appreciate that. But you'll get a little badge and it'll look different. And because we're also thinking, obviously we're starting with students, but how could we also start to build things for one another? I know Dr. Haggerty said she would love to see us figure out a way to start to build. If you think about the I want to be a dean stuff, well, what if that was a micro-credential and you could just take it at your leisure and then have a badge to go along with it. So we're not there yet, but there's a lot of opportunities. And so those may be where we do the D2L badges because there's not a cost associated with those.
Thank you.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I was wondering about the specificity of this. I haven't seen micro-credentials used in this kind of very general context. I have seen it on the workforce side where they've divided, for example, an HVAC thing and you get a certificate, or automotive and you get a certificate from Toyota and working on Hyundais and whatever else, computer technology. Is that a direction that you would think about? in the
It
future?
definitely is. And those were things I saw when I was reading through all the advisory committee minutes, but we wanted to start the pilot with something that would help more, right? But the sky's the limit. So there are so many things, and I'm sure you guys are already thinking of things, right? That you know your students could really benefit from that could be done in this format.
And also, you know, when you do that, you've got people coming in from the community. I've been an auto technician for umpteen years, but I don't know about this new
Yeah.
thing that they're putting on cars now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's when we talk about, you know, figuring out where this will live permanently. We have to get to that point. We have to have a home for it, if you will, before we can start to do the stuff that would be more for the community. But that's the idea. I mean, we're a community college. We should be the place you come back to multiple times throughout your career to hone up new skill sets. So absolutely. Thank you.
You might, I can actually, you know, think about some employers
Mhm.
housing these continuing ed things they do
Yes.
in such a system.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the folks who are on executive committee is Director Grigsby for corporate college, because there's obviously some potential there too. So again, sky's the limit. We could micro-credential everything all day long, but we want to make sure it's something that's needed, that has kind of that Lone Star stamp. And that's why we want to take our time and definitely start with our students. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So sorry if you mentioned this, but how are the courses going to be paced? Or are they self-paced? Just because if I'm a student and
Yeah.
I'm already full time,
Exactly.
I might want to take the course, but then I'm like, I'm already busy with homework and things. How am
Yeah.
I going to keep up with that
Yeah.
course too?
Yeah, so they're self-paced, they're completely asynchronous. And one of the things we want to have is, just like I told you all, this takes about 2 hours. We want to have that information for the student before they even log in. Here's how long it'll take, but they won't be rushed. One of the things we're batting about and trying to figure out an answer to is, how long do you leave it open? Most of the other colleges will have it open for a span of time, and then they take it offline, probably to assess it, update it, things of that nature, and then they put it back out. And so that'll be something we kind of see how it goes in the fall. Do we want to just open them up and leave them open all semester? Or do we want to give them a certain amount of weeks and then take it down for a little bit? But it will be completely self-paced, completely asynchronous. The idea is that anybody could jump in and do it anytime. And it should be built in such a way that they don't need anybody helping them, if you will. There shouldn't be an instructor who's having to check in on it or provide feedback. It should be able to just click along on its own. Great question.
Yeah, I just have one. So I understand from how this is beginning that Lone Star wants to kind of generate their own micro-credentialing, but there are tons of proprietors that are out there that make micro-credentials. Some of them have industry-wide recognition. Some, as me and Dr. Kiner have kind of seen in these specific niche spaces, have micro-credentials that they're working on, and the industry, they're getting industry feedback. And so some of the work is already being done.
Mhm.
How is Lone Star going to essentially figure out, when do I outsource versus when do I build, and what, basically, let's stop there.
Yeah,
and then-
absolutely. So it's a great question. So when we formed the executive committee, it had, the main charge was to figure out how we're going to do micro-credentials at Lone Star. There were 3 kind of avenues. So one was for our students, one was for faculty and staff, as I kind of mentioned earlier, and then one was third-party credentials. For instance, we have access to a whole bunch of, Oracle and Amazon Web Services, and it's being used in pockets, but could this also be an opportunity to kind of elevate some of that? So to your point, there's a slew of stuff out there. One of the colleges, when I was doing my research, one college I investigated had a robust micro-credentials program. None of it was in-house. It was basically, they were a portal to a slew of third-party credentials. And so that is also on our to-do list as we figure out what's out there that we want to make available to our students, whether we're just a pass-through or whether we want to have some financial backing so that our students have access to it at a discounted price. And that's probably an area where we would definitely lean into the curriculum teams to say, what's out there to support your area, that again would make our students even more qualified when they left us and went out into the workplace. That's a great question.
So I had a question about, you mentioned that faculty or whoever creates the micro-credential wouldn't necessarily have to check in on it regularly. And yet it's still not a participation only. You have to show that you've acquired these skills. So there's some sort of assessment on there, presumably online, since that's what we're doing here. So how do you, what are the thoughts that have been discussed so far on integrity for that? And is there proctoring? Or I just thought it was maybe ironic that we have a micro-credential on AI that somebody may use AI to complete.
Yeah.
Let's be
absolutely.
honest.
Yeah. So I don't think there has not been conversation about proctoring, just because again, these are unmanned, if you will. And so we would probably overwhelm the tech team with people trying to figure out how to do proctoring when there's no faculty member assigned to the class. So we have not had that yet. Again, this is pilot project, right? What we have had are a lot of conversations about how can we feel good about the assessments? How can I send you out there saying you've earned this micro credential in conflict management and, you know, feel good about it, right? So that's where, or communication. So that's where we are really going to have a lot of great conversations as we build these. And again, I'll go back to, we're not saying these people who take our micro credentials are now masters of communication, right? Or superb critical thinkers. We are saying that these people are, who have these badges, have been able to demonstrate foundational understanding in these areas, right? So having to really think about it in a very specific way so that we feel good about what we're saying that they can do, and our employers will feel good about, yes, this matches. So that's a great question. Thank you. So as you can tell, there's a lot that's still up in the air. So help me, help me figure it out. Yes, ma'am. Oh, Harlan. No, it was you. I thought it was.
I have another question for you. So you've mentioned third-party vendors and digital wallets. Who pays for all this? Is this a student services fee, or is it, or are we absorbing this, or?
Yeah,
how's that?
so for the fall, it's my budget. I have I've already committed to 10,000 badges. And then as we watch the pilot numbers go up, if we need to purchase more, it's a pretty easy buy. And then we start to figure out, again, those long terms. We're in conversations with D2L about how much it would cost to get what we need to kind of do that full house, to be able to offer it to community. And then once we have those numbers, start to figure out how would we make all of it work. But right now there's no fee or anything being added on to the students.
And then one more, I'm thinking about the workshop just prior to this. I'm wondering if soft skills could be created as a micro-credential.
Yeah, well, and that's really what
Communication
these
of-
are, right? I mean, we've called them everything under the sun, but it really is kind of that critical thinking, getting along well with others. And if any of you have worked with NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they have a great framework that we pulled in when we started to see that all these themes are the same themes everybody's talking about. At the end of the day, we are still trying to solve soft skills. So it's just one more shot to try to help it out. Yes.
I have a couple of questions from more of like a department chair point of view as to, so who's going to be teaching these courses? Is it going to, like the faculty will probably be, and then as far as like overload, how does it count?
Yeah, so this isn't part of a faculty load at all. So
Right,
if
right,
a
right.
faculty submits a proposal and gets approved to help us build one, that's, again, it's a MOAA, so that memorandum of whatever it's called, whatever this additional assignment. And so it would happen kind of outside of the scope of a faculty. And
Okay.
once you help us build it, you're not teaching it. It is autonomous, right? It's out there doing its thing. We are going to call on you though, if something goes awry, right? Or you tell us, so on the proposal form, the very last question is, how often do you think this needs to be updated? Is it annually, quarterly, semesterally? And whatever you agree to, that's how often we're going to reach out to you and say, all right, do you want to come in and make any updates, any tweaks? But it wouldn't be part of your faculty load.
Right, so.
It could be part potentially of your 30, right? Whatever
Right,
those
so there's no
hours.
stipend, there is no incentive, it's like a part of
No,
institutional
there's a
service.
stipend. No, there's a stipend.
There's a
So,
stipend.
yeah. So again, that MOAA kind of outlines the expectations. And I think I mentioned earlier, this spring, the executive committee and I are figuring out the stipend amount. So there'll be a stipend for the initial build. And then there will be a stipend for that maintenance that comes in, that where we have you come back and kind of refresh it.
Right, so the way that I'm picturing this, like kind of like those aceable courses, that's what you guys have in mind, the one that, you know, you just purchase, I don't know, for real estate, for like driver license, so it's completely autonomous type of courses. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
And then the 30 hours that you mentioned, 30 hours or less, just to have a better understanding of what that looks like. In comparison to an 80 contact hour course, we're thinking about 30 hours.
Exactly. And
that.
that's the ceiling. So
Right.
you can actually have a well-designed micro credential that's 5 or 6 hours because they're very specific. And that's the big mind shift that we're going to have, particularly for faculty, because we're used to a course, 48 hours, 60 hours, all these SLOs, and it is not. It is very specific. So when you take our little micro credential, you'll have examples of all that, and you'll see how it is really, really drilled down into a specific topic. And that's why, again, it's not critical thinking. It is foundations, components, understanding what does critical thinking even mean, right? That alone could take 40 hours.
Right.
So
So those faculty who are interested into becoming like part of the review board,
Mhm.
are those separate from the expert you mentioned in your?
yeah,
So
or
the
they could,
experts are the ones that they come and then they, whatever the or the arrangement is with
Mhm.
their institutional service and all that.
Yeah.
They come and that's how they do. So we can actually go and let our faculty know that this is something going on. If you're doing chemistry, if you're doing this, if you're doing that, you can.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they don't have to fill out any outside employment or anything like that. It's just a.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
an
So really there's 3 ways to be involved. Well, four. You can just go take the course just to take it, right? The little micro credential that's already out there. You can volunteer to be on the review committee, which is launching this spring. You can volunteer to be on the competitive edge steering committee, which is launching this spring. Or you can already be thinking about what proposal you want to submit and serve as a subject matter expert for, and that will happen in the fall. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think we have time for one more question. One more.
Okay. So, when you develop a micro credential, at least in the beginning pilot stages for the next couple semesters, are you planning to have the material completely within D2L and not sending them off like a gateway, like you mentioned before, let's say to LinkedIn
Yeah,
or
no.
Udemy or
So everything will live in
the
D2L.
material will
Yeah.
be
Mhm.
exclusively, completely laid out in D2L?
Yeah, I mean, there may be like a couple links, right? I mean,
Okay,
we
yeah.
tried that already, right?
Yeah.
We will have as much of it built into D2L as possible. Absolutely. So,
Okay.
okay. Thank you so much. Again, you should be getting more information from your VPI tomorrow, but you already have everything. If you've got that QR code, you have access to everything we've got. Feel free to reach out. Thank you for your awesome questions and your interest in what we're doing.